Dr. Indigo Nakamura stared at the bio readings for the third time in 10 minutes, her secondary arms unconsciously flexing with frustration. The neural activity patterns cascading across her displays defied every xenobiological protocol she'd mastered in her 40 cycles of study. The creature in Sector 7's maximum containment habitat was simultaneously exhibiting peak aggression markers, cortisol analogs that should have triggered immediate berserker rage, while broadcasting distress frequencies that suggested severe psychological trauma. Her equipment registered both imminent lethal threat and critical care needed in the same breath. The readings were impossible. Aggressive xenofauna didn't experience separation anxiety. Berserkers didn't whimper. Status report. Commander Thorn Volkov's voice crackled through the comm system, his usual military precision edged with barely contained concern. The specimen's condition is deteriorating, Indigo replied, her chromatophores unconsciously shifting to worried purple hues. Metabolic functions are approaching critical thresholds despite optimal environmental controls. The containment field is maintaining integrity, but... She paused, watching another spike of contradictory data flood her screens. Something's wrong with our behavioral models. The Ravager, named after the catastrophic first contact incident that had claimed 3 survey teams, was dying. Despite providing everything their xenobiology textbooks demanded for aggressive species containment: isolation to prevent territorial disputes, minimal stimulation to avoid triggering combat responses, and automated feeding systems to eliminate potential threat interactions. Every standard protocol was being followed perfectly, and it was killing the creature. 3 senior xenobiologists had already refused habitat entry after reviewing the psych evaluations. The creature's recorded aggression levels were off every known chart, its combat capabilities theoretically capable of tearing through reinforced hull plating. The initial contact reports described a nightmare of claws and fury that had devastated trained exploration teams in minutes. Yet here it sat, curled in the corner of its perfectly regulated enclosure, slowly dying of what appeared to be loneliness. The observation deck's automatic doors hissed open, interrupting Indigo's troubled analysis. She glanced up, expecting another researcher or command staff member, but instead watched a human female enter, wheeling a maintenance cart loaded with cleaning supplies. "Evening, Doc," the human called cheerfully, beginning to wipe down the observation windows with practiced efficiency. "How's our friend doing tonight?" Indigo blinked in confusion. The human, her badge read M. Fox, Custodial Services, was referring to the most dangerous xenobiological specimen ever captured, as if it were a familiar acquaintance. She studied the creature's file quickly. Marlowe Fox, night shift, custodian, security clearance level 2, no xenobiology training listed. "The specimen is classified as extremely hazardous," Indigo replied automatically. "Observation protocols recommend minimal interaction to avoid triggering." "Oh, he's not hazardous," Marlowe interrupted, pausing her cleaning to peer through the reinforced barriers. "Look at those body language cues. Poor guy's scared out of his mind." She pointed to the creature's posture, what Indigo had classified as pre-attack positioning, and tilted her head sympathetically. "See how he's keeping his back to the wall? Classic defensive positioning. And those vocalizations aren't aggressive calls, they're distress signals. Sounds just like the dogs we used to get at the shelter after abuse cases." Indigo's chromatophores flickered between purple confusion and yellow alarm. "Shelter? I used to manage an animal rescue back on Earth before taking this job," Marlowe explained, returning to her window cleaning. "Specialized in rehabilitation cases, animals that had been traumatized or abandoned. You see a lot of these same behaviors." She gestured toward the creature, who had lifted its head slightly at the sound of voices. "Isolation makes it worse, you know. Social species need companionship to heal properly." "Social Species? Indigo repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. According to every analysis, the Ravager was a solitary apex predator. The entire containment strategy was based on that assumption. Well, yeah. Look at him trying to get closer to us even through the barriers. If he were truly aggressive, he'd be territorial about the perimeter. Instead, he's showing approach behaviors. Marlowe finished the last window and packed her supplies. Poor baby's probably wondering why nobody will talk to him. As if responding to the human's words, the creature shifted position, moving closer to the observation window. Indigo's instruments immediately registered the movement as aggressive advancement toward potential targets. But watching the creature's actual body language, she began to see what Marlowe meant. The posture was hesitant, almost hopeful. The initial contact reports, Indigo began. Oh, those, Marlowe shrugged. Classic fear response escalation. Scared animal encounters, unfamiliar species. Both sides panic, everything goes sideways fast. Happens all the time. She checked her watch. I've got 3 more sectors to clean, but I'll swing by later if you want. Might be able to help figure out what he needs. With that casual offer to assist with a xenobiological crisis that had stumped the station's entire science department, Marlowe Fox wheeled her cart toward the exit, leaving Indigo staring at her instruments with a growing sense that everything she understood about xenobiology might be fundamentally wrong. The emergency meeting convened at 0300 station time, with Commander Volkov's hologram flickering impatiently as department heads filed into the conference room. Dr. Indigo Nakamura had requested the gathering after spending 6 hours reviewing behavioral data through an entirely new lens, and her findings had shaken her confidence in 40 cycles of expertise. Report, Volkov commanded, his image betraying the exhaustion of a commander dealing with an unsolvable problem. We may have made a critical error in our containment approach, Indigo began, her chromatophores cycling through nervous patterns. The specimen, the creature in Sector 7, it's not responding to our protocols because our protocols are wrong. Explain. Chief Science Officer River Hassan leaned forward, her expression skeptical. Every xenobiological analysis confirmed aggressive solitary behaviors. That's what I thought, Indigo admitted. But tonight, a human custodian observed behavioral patterns we've been completely misinterpreting. What we classified as pre-attack positioning appears to be defensive fear responses. What we recorded as territorial vocalizations may actually be distress calls. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Volkov spoke. You're suggesting our most dangerous specimen is actually scared? I'm suggesting we might have been inadvertently torturing an intelligent being by denying it social contact, Indigo replied quietly. The human, Marlowe Fox. She has experience with animal rehabilitation. She identified symptoms consistent with severe psychological trauma from isolation. Impossible, Dr. Phoenix Cross interjected from his seat at the far end of the table. The combat recordings clearly show what happens when a frightened, confused creature is confronted by unfamiliar beings in a threatening environment. Indigo interrupted. The human called it fear response escalation. Both sides panic. Both sides react defensively. The situation spirals out of control. River Hassan pulled up the initial contact videos on her tablet, studying them with fresh perspective. The creature did attempt to retreat initially, she admitted reluctantly. The engagement escalated only after our teams pursued into what might have been its territory. Territorial defense is normal behavior, Volkov pointed out. Not territorial defense, Indigo corrected. Haven protection. There's a significant difference according to human-animal psychology. The creature wasn't claiming dominance, It was protecting what it perceived as its safe space. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. They had captured what they believed to be a dangerous predator, isolated it for everyone's safety, and watched it slowly die while congratulating themselves on proper protocol adherence. "What does the human suggest?" Volkov asked finally. "Social interaction, companionship, basic comfort measures." Indigo's chromatophores had settled into a steady, determined blue. She volunteered to enter the habitat. "Absolutely not," Cross objected immediately. "The risk assessment alone." "The risk assessment was based on faulty behavioral analysis," Indigo replied firmly. "If the human is correct about the creature's psychological state, isolation is actively harming it. Every hour we delay treatment increases the likelihood of permanent damage or death." "And if she's wrong?" Hassan asked quietly. "If it really is as dangerous as we initially believed?" Indigo considered this carefully. "Then we lose one maintenance worker instead of watching a potentially intelligent being die slowly from preventable psychological trauma." The harsh calculation of xenobiological research hung in the air between them. Finally, Volkov nodded slowly. "Schedule the interaction for 0800. Full monitoring, emergency response team standing by. If this human can succeed where our entire science department has failed." He shook his head. "Let's find out what we've been missing." As the meeting dispersed, Indigo remained in her seat, studying the creature's vital signs on her personal display. For the first time in cycles, she found herself hoping that everything she'd learned about xenobiology was wrong. Marlowe Fox arrived at Sector 7 carrying a small bag of items that would have horrified any xenobiologist. A water container, some nutrient bars from the commissary, and a small blanket from her quarters. She'd changed from her custodial uniform into casual civilian clothes, jeans and a soft sweater that wouldn't rustle threateningly. "Are you certain about this?" Indigo asked for the 7th time, her chromatophores cycling through anxious yellow patterns. The observation deck was crowded with monitoring staff, emergency response teams, and senior officers who'd gathered to watch a human maintenance worker attempt something 3 trained xenobiologists had refused to try. "Of course I'm certain," Marlowe replied, checking the airlock systems with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this countless times before. "I've rehabilitated everything from traumatized wolves to abused bears. Same principles apply regardless of the species." "But you understand the potential danger?" Commander Volkov's voice carried through the comm system. "This creature has documented combat capabilities that could—" "Commander, with respect, every animal has combat capabilities when it's scared." "Enough," Marlowe interrupted gently. "The trick is not scaring them in the first place." She hefted her bag of supplies. "I'll be fine. He just needs someone to show him he's not alone anymore." The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Marlowe stepped into the habitat with the unhurried movements of someone approaching a nervous animal. The creature, easily twice her size and possessing claws that could shred hull plating, lifted its head from where it lay curled against the far wall. For a long moment, human and alien regarded each other across the sterile space of the containment habitat. Indigo held her breath, instruments ready to record either a breakthrough in xenobiological relations or the most educational mauling in scientific history. "Hey there, big guy," Marlowe said softly, settling cross-legged on the floor about 10 feet from the creature. "I know you've been having a rough time. Brought you some things that might help." The creature's head tilted slightly, a gesture that looked remarkably like curiosity rather than threat assessment. It made a low sound that the translators had been classifying as aggressive rumbling, but which, in this context, sounded almost like a question. "Yeah, I know. New person," Marlowe continued conversationally, pulling the water container from her bag. "Everyone's been keeping their distance, haven't they?" That must be confusing. She placed the water on the floor between them and slid it gently toward the creature. Here. You look thirsty. The creature's eyes, large, dark, and undeniably intelligent, fixed on the water container, then returned to Marlowe's face. Slowly, cautiously, it extended one massive hand toward the offering. That's it, Marlowe encouraged. Take your time. No pressure. In the observation deck, Indigo watched her instruments register a dramatic shift in the creature's bio-readings. Stress hormones were dropping rapidly, while neural patterns associated with curiosity and social bonding were spiking. The creature that had been dying of isolation was responding to simple kindness, with what could only be described as hope. The creature lifted the water container with surprising delicacy, its claws carefully positioned to avoid puncturing the metal. It drank deeply, never taking its eyes off Marlowe, then set the container down and made another soft vocalization. You're welcome, Marlowe replied as if she'd understood perfectly. She pulled out the nutrient bars next. Bet the automatic feeders don't have much personality, do they? Here, try these. They're from our commissary, closest thing I could find to comfort food. As the creature accepted the food with the same careful politeness, Marlowe began talking. She told it about her work on the station, about the cats she'd left back on Earth, about how confusing it must be to wake up in a strange place with no familiar smells or sounds. Her voice carried the practiced calm of someone who'd spent years soothing frightened animals, and the creature responded by gradually moving closer, drawn by the first social interaction it had experienced since capture. The poor thing's been desperately lonely, Marlowe said to the monitoring team, her voice carrying clearly through the comm system. Look at those approach behaviors. He's been trying to connect with someone this whole time. Isolation's probably the worst possible treatment for his psychology. Within 30 minutes, the creature was sitting close enough to Marlowe that she could have reached out and touched it. Within an hour, it had accepted the blanket she offered and was making what could only be described as contented sounds. By the time Marlowe's shift officially ended, the creature was visibly healthier, more alert, and showing none of the aggressive tendencies that had justified its maximum security classification. I should probably get going, Marlowe said eventually, gathering her empty containers. But I'll come back tomorrow night, okay? Maybe bring some better food next time. The creature made a plaintive sound as she moved toward the airlock, and Marlowe paused. Oh, you don't want me to leave yet? She glanced toward the observation window where Indigo and the monitoring team were frantically analyzing the most successful xenobiological contact in recorded history. Think they'd let me stay a little longer? Request immediate revision of all xenobiological containment protocols, Indigo dictated to her personal recorder 3 days later, watching Marlowe share lunch with the creature that had once been classified as a galactic-level threat. Human-animal rehabilitation techniques appear universally applicable to xenobiological psychology, with profound implications for interspecies relations. The creature, who Marlowe had started calling gentle, despite all official protests, was not only healthy but actively helpful, using its considerable strength to assist with habitat maintenance, and even learning basic Federation standard phrases. Its intelligence, previously masked by trauma responses, was becoming increasingly apparent. The human's approach contradicts every established protocol, Indigo continued, yet achieves superior results through methods that could revolutionize our entire field. Recommend immediate consultation with human-animal psychology experts for comprehensive protocol revision. Commander Volkov appeared beside her, watching the impossible scene below. The implications for first contact procedures alone. Every aggressive species we've encountered, Indigo agreed quietly. How many were actually just frightened and confused? How many conflicts could have been prevented with proper social approach techniques? In the habitat, Marlowe was teaching Gentle a simple word game, both species laughing at the creature's attempts to pronounce human phonemes. It was the sound of two intelligent beings enjoying each other's company, something that should have been impossible according to every xenobiological text ever written. "Dr. Nakamura," Volkov said formally, "I'm authorizing a complete review of our xenobiology department. I want human consultants brought in immediately. If this custodian has expertise we lack, I want it integrated into our procedures before we encounter another species we might accidentally traumatize." Indigo nodded, her chromatophores cycling through patterns of professional excitement mixed with humility. 40 cycles of study, and it had taken a human janitor to show her what she'd been missing. That intelligence without compassion was just sophisticated ignorance. "One more thing," Volkov added as he prepared to leave. "What's Fox's background? Any formal education we should know about?" "I checked her file," Indigo replied. "High school graduate, worked various retail jobs before managing an animal shelter for 12 years. No formal scientific training whatsoever." She paused, watching Marlowe gently correct Gentle's pronunciation with infinite patience. "She says she learned everything she needed from working with scared animals who just needed someone to care." Below them, Marlowe checked her watch and sighed. "Sorry, buddy. I've got to finish my rounds. But I'll be back tomorrow night, and maybe we can work on getting you some friends to visit. Bet you'd like that." Gentle made what had become recognizable as his happy sound, and carefully patted Marlowe's shoulder with one massive hand. A gesture of affection that would have been classified as an attack just days earlier. As Marlowe gathered her things and headed for the airlock, she called back cheerfully, "Oh, and don't forget to drink more water. You're still recovering." The creature that had nearly died from isolation waved goodbye to the human who had saved it, then settled contentedly to wait for her return. In the observation deck, the Federation's top xenobiologist began rewriting everything she thought she knew about intelligence, empathy, and the fundamental requirements for civilization. Tomorrow, Marlowe Fox would arrive for her regular shift, probably complaining about her landlord or wondering if she'd remembered to water her plants. She would treat the rescue of an entire species' reputation as just another successful day at work, the way humans always did. The universe had become a fundamentally different place, but Marlowe still had 3 more sectors to clean before morning.